So I am in a bit of a pickle. I have less than 1 week to craft and put together 4 high fantasy looks for a fantasy photo retreat that I'm going to in like 5-6 days. It is now Monday and I leave on Sunday, so let's see how much I can get done. My first concept that I came up with is kind of a naturey blue, green, and teal tiefling. I already ordered my horns off of Etsy, so we don't have to worry about that. And for this particular look, I wanted it to be kind of inspired by Firefly Path because recently I've thrifted a lot of beautiful fabrics. And unfortunately, I do not have Firefly Path money, but what I do have in ample supply is creative delusion. The first idea that I workshopped was to start with a bra top and then drape on top of it. However, I have since decided to go in a different direction. So I'm gonna be starting with a corset top. This is just a cheap top that I bought online, but it'll do donkey, it'll do. And then for the skirt, I'm gonna be starting with this thrifted sheer curtain and this satin minty sheet that I also thrifted. So this is what we're kind of going for. And then for the design, I've always wanted to make a hanky hem skirt. So I've looked up a tutorial on YouTube to figure out how to do that. I'll be linking that tutorial down below if you guys want to give it a shot as well. But that's what I'm gonna be following. So I'm not gonna really get into detail on how I'm doing it because it's not my tutorial to give you guys.
The long and short of it is basically if you know how to make a circle skirt, you already know how to make a hanky hem skirt. But instead of starting with a circle piece of fabric, you're starting with a square piece of fabric and then adding your waist circumference to the middle. Although I did my hip circumference instead of my waist circumference because I'm planning on using elastic. So after doing some math, which I will not be explaining, I attached my pattern to the innermost part of the fold and I cut everything out. This fabric likes to fray like an SOB, so I went ahead and singed the edges with the lighter and then repeated the same step with my lining fabric. When you unfold it, this is what it should look like, and then it's time to add the waistband. But that was when
my sewing machine, whom I thought I was on first name basis with, has betrayed me. Damn you, Montgomery. To be fair, it's probably because I'm a noob trying to sew satin and chiffon onto elastic with a sewing machine that's older than my mother. And then for the second outfit, I've always wanted my own armor, and luckily my husband is a foam smith, so I commissioned him to make me a breastplate and some pauldrons, and I am currently in the process of making some embellishments, so let me show you how that's going. So this is probably the thing that's going the most smooth. I got these cake molds, which I've been filling with hot glue, so once I paint it, it's gonna look nice and snazzy. The only issue I'm having is I still don't know what I want to wear with the armor. I envisioned it with a red dress, however, I don't have one that would work with it, and as of right now, it's way too late to order anything. This is an option, and I don't hate it. It just looks like we're gonna have a lot of things in the blue and green family for the retreat, which, I mean, a little consistency doesn't hurt anybody. But seeing as my tiefling skirt went up in flames and I need to find something for that, and I want to find a better option for the armor, I think I'm gonna have to rely upon the thrift gods to pull a thrift miracle. Get in the car, loser, we're going thrifting. Just so we're clear, I don't think you're a loser. It's a Mean Girls reference.
All right, team, so this is the plan. Not only are we looking for a dress that might work with the armor, I also want to see if I can find a minty blue or green skirt that is somewhat similar in color to the lining fabric that I wanted to use. And then over the top of that, my husband ordered me a navy blue chiffon overskirt because he witnessed my epic sewing crash out and he wanted to help me solve the problem. This is kind of the color that I'm going for, but I do not like the pleats. Also, I keep finding stuff that's cute that doesn't pertain to the retreat, so that's great, but I'm just gonna hold on to this. Any other time, I would have been happy about finding this. This is so cute. I don't need it. So I was good and I put the skirt back, but then we got up to the checkout because my husband wanted to get some socks. They're brand new, by the way. And I saw this in the case. So much for not making any unnecessary purchases, but I didn't find anything for the retreat. We have a little bit more time, so we're gonna try to find an ARC or something else nearby and see if we can find something else because I refuse to accept defeat. So we're gonna keep trying.
Okay, so yet again, that was entirely uneventful. I tried to stay open-minded and look through everything and not stay so glued to my vision that I have in mind, because sometimes the best things that you find are things that you weren't really looking for. However, even with that, it was pretty slim pickings. I think it's because it's military day at ARC, so it was pretty picked over. We're gonna go to Ross, because I always joke that Ross's prices are about the same as the thrift stores these days, and I have found some like fairy skirts at Ross before, so you know what, I'm gonna check it out. I don't know if I can vlog in there or take you guys in there, because I'm not really sure about their policy as regards to filming, but I'm gonna check it out and see if I can find something.
You gotta be freaking kidding me.
Okay, so this is a lot more icy blue than I had intended. And for reference, this is the original color of the underskirt that I wanted, and this is the skirt that we found. It's a cute skirt, don't get me wrong, but since it's a lot more blue than it is green, I feel like it's gonna be a lot harder to implement the greens that I really wanted to include in the embellishments. So I have a backup plan cooking in my brain, and it might be crazy, but I think I'm gonna go for it.
Basically, what I decided to do is sew the layers of my original skirt directly to the corset, which I didn't want to do. I would have preferred it be two separate pieces to make it a little bit easier on myself, because since I have hips and I have wide shoulders, I need some sort of opening in the skirt in order to be able to get it on. Obviously, the logical solution would be to add a zipper, but since I was already struggling with adding elastic, I didn't want to add any unnecessary challenges that would require time to solve. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm pre-gathering the front and the sides, however, I'm leaving a gap in the back that isn't gathered, which should line up with the lace-up portion in the back, which is where I'm primarily going to be loosening and tightening it. This should theoretically give me enough room to be able to pull it over my head, and yes, that portion of fabric will droop a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. And I thought about hand stitching a little bit of elastic to that portion of the fabric, but I don't have time to be picky, and the back is nobody's business. So the good news is I was able to whip stitch this onto the corset, and also I can get it on with no problem. But I actually really like how this turned out. It's funny, we went on that side quest to solve this problem, and I ended up solving it myself. So now I'm gonna plop this back on my dress form, and we're going to attempt to embellish. I'm just goofing around. I don't know if this looks good. When in doubt, just keep pinning. Just keep pinning, just keep pinning, pinning, pinning. After an excessive amount of pinning and unpinning and doubting my judgment, it is time to make the pinning permanent. So a lot of the embellishments that I used on this were just scrap pieces of fabric that I had in my stash that I cut into little leafy shapes. And I intended to add moss to this, however, the lace kind of gave it a little bit of a mossy feel, which is good news for my suitcase because I will not be finding random bits of moss for the next 3 to 5 business years. I also used a teal kind of colored lacy fabric, which I feel like really added to the color transition between the blue and the green. Pro tip though, don't get lazy and start hot gluing your embellishments on, because that is a quick way to singe off your fingertips. Ask me how I know. Since the tiefling outfit is pretty much squared away, we just have a couple more embellishments to make for the armor, and then we can get to the gluing. Since I neglected to film the process of making the other filigree embellishments, here's a quick little demo. My tips are, first of all, use high temp hot glue. The melting point is a lot higher, so they're going to be a lot more durable, especially if you're shooting in high heat, like under studio lights or in Sacramento, California. I would recommend going pretty slow and steady. Try to work the nozzle into all the small little crevices. You can even pull the little crevices back, since silicone molds are extremely flexible. However, be extremely careful. You have not experienced pain until you get scalded by high temp hot glue. Okay, so I've seen other creators recommend using hot glue to attach it, which I will also concur with. I started with super glue because I am an overachiever and I did not like it. But anyways, after attaching those, it was time to plasti dip and prime.
Oh my god, she's gorgeous. Here's the shoulder. So now we shall paint. Look at this little baby who's making all sorts of ruckus and noise in the background while I'm trying to film. Isn't she the cutest baby?
You're trying to film a clip and this girl just has to cry and cry. But notice how when I carry her and she's in daddy's arms, now she's all quiet.
She is 100% baby. One common method that I see a lot of people doing when painting metallics is they'll prime it and then they'll spray paint it the metallic color that they want to start out with, and then they'll go in with black acrylic and weather it. That's not the way I do things. So I like to start with a black base, and then I'll proceed to dry brush over the top of it using a metallic oil paint. This time, however, I ran out of my metallic oil paints and I just have Rub and Buff, which also works just as good. So for the majority of this, I'm gonna be using a silver Rub and Buff. And then for the filigree details, I'm gonna be using a gold Rub and Buff. And for this, I like to use like a crappy bristly brush. And then for my edges to really make them pop, I like to use one of these bad boys. I don't like to use really big brushes because I want control, and these are a little bit too silky, although you can tell I've used it before, but I think it was for something that was less weathered. But that's how I do it. Doesn't have to be how you do it. Whatever you prefer.
I do have to say, the cheaper the brush, the bristlier the brush, the more the bristles are coming off while you're using it, the better it looks in my opinion. At least for this method. If you're trying to go for a lot cleaner look, obviously use a better quality brush, but the kind of brush strokes that I'm going for are very ununiform and very messy because I'm going for a weathered look. And the cool thing is, the more layers you do, the more it looks kind of airbrushed, but again in a weathered way. But fair warning, since you're really smushing those bristles in there, it will destroy the brush over time, which is another good reason why you want to use a cheaper brush, because you will be destroying it. I like to start at the edges as well. That's where I want the most pigment anyways, because it's going to make the edges stand out. For the more flat and open areas, I like to have less product on my brush because then I'll have less heavy brush strokes. So allowing yourself to deposit most of the pigment on the edges where you want to highlight anyways is a good idea, and then work your way outward. And how weathered you want your piece will depend on how many times you go over it and how much Rub and Buff or paint you use. But because we used black as the base coat, all of that darkness is going to stay in the little crevices and the low points. So not only is this going to add depth to your piece and shading, but it's also going to add a nice natural patina. And of course, the less weathered you want, the more silver or metallic you want to add. But even then, you're still going to have some shading, you're still going to have some darkness in the low points, which I feel like adds a little bit more realism and really makes the piece pop on camera. And this is the point where I discovered that my gold Rub and Buff was completely dried out. So I tried to use some gold spray paint and just brush it on, which is an old method that I used to use. However, I was not a big fan of how it was looking. It was still 8 o'clock at this point and several stores were still open. However, none of them for some reason had Rub and Buff. So while my husband did some calls and tried to figure something out, I just continued working on the pauldrons with the same method. We did not have any paint thinner, however, I did try to revive the Rub and Buff with some WD-40, but that didn't work. However, you know what the WD-40 did work for? My completely dried out oil paint. So that is what I did. Not ideal for perfectionists such as myself, but we wanted to get these bad boys sealed tonight. So even if I could have had Jeffy Bezos overnight some gold Rub and Buff, that was not going to be enough. Which, by the way, I couldn't have even if I wanted to. Because for some stinking reason, nobody has Rub and Buff. Not even the billionaire Baldy himself. Or at least that would have come in time. The quickest I could have had it was in 4 business days, but I digress and I will stop complaining. The very last step before adding the straps is to go over everything with a glossy top coat to seal the paint job and give it a little bit of extra shine.
Now, at this point, you might be thinking, wait a minute, you said 4 outfits and I only count 2. Very astute observation, Sherlock Holmes. So for outfits number 3 and 4, I'm actually gonna be bringing a few different options. And that is, I'm gonna be bringing 3 different variations of my Celestial Wizard outfit. The first one is the one that I wore to the Ren Fair last year. The second is the one using my Costa Real purple dress with my painted corset. And then the third one, which is the more newer variation, I'm going to be using the purple chemise that I bought at Ren Fair last year, along with the backup skirt that my husband bought with the painted corset as well. Now, obviously, I won't be wearing all 3 variations. I just wanted to give myself some options, and I'm still not sure if I'm going to wear 2 out of the 3 because I have 4 different photo shoots, or if I'll be rummaging through the client closet because we will be having some wardrobe available for people coming to the retreat. Now, how this is going to work is production is actually getting there earlier, and that includes myself. I am am the resident videographer, and we're gonna be doing our own photo shoots to test the locations, test the lighting, and also kind of get our creative juices flowing. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I am going to a fantasy photo retreat. This is like the third or fourth one I've done with Dead Wrath and Beyond. This is my second year going as the official videographer. Unfortunately, this might be the last year we're actually doing the retreat. However, I'm still gonna be honing my videography skills, so if I get any opportunities to go to other retreats in the future, I'll keep you guys posted and let you know what's going on with that, because I very much enjoy this. I love collaborating with other photographers, and it also presents the creative challenge of putting together these outfits, which I very much enjoy. Now, it is currently Saturday, and I leave tomorrow morning. And when I say morning, I mean at 3 a.m. to catch my flight, because lately TSA has been wildin' and I'm taking no chances. So right now, the tiefling outfit is completely finished. This is what it's looking like. And then we have already finished sealing and adding the straps to the armor, and this is what this is looking like.
Pose, pose, little spin. Yeah.
I cannot lift my arms, but it's not like I'm gonna be going into battle in this, because if I did, I would die instantly.
This is more for looks than function, let's be honest.
Well, that's a good thing, because sleeves would definitely get in the way. Here, let's...
See, yeah, it looks cool. We just realistically.
And now what's left for me to do is to finish packing, because as I said, I have a very early wake up time, so I should probably get to bed at a decent time tonight. Obviously, that means I don't have time to do a proper reveal with hair and makeup all styled for you guys, because I very much doubt I'm gonna get much time to edit this video as I'm traveling and doing videography for the retreat. So that being said, if you guys wanna see the full reveal with the hair and the makeup and on location and all of that stuff, definitely subscribe to my channel if you aren't already, but also consider following me on social media, such as Instagram, where I'll be posting behind the scenes stories of the photo shoots and my looks and all of that stuff. Finally, I just wanted to give a big shout out and a thank you to my patrons and my channel members who also got a little sneak peek of the tiefling look as I was putting it together and putting the finishing touches on it. If you'd like to be in the know, the first to see my projects as I'm working on them, consider joining. The links are down below, but it is not necessary to enjoy my content. I mean, eventually you're gonna see what I'm working on. But if you'd like to support me otherwise, you can just like this video, you can leave a comment down below. And with that, I need to get ready and get to bed. Thank you so much for watching and going along with me on this journey, and I will see you hopefully soon. Bye-bye.